Hello, welcome to Bomber Report. It's Paul Friesen with the Winnipeg Sun, Scott Billick, also with Winnipeg Sun, here talking about 3-year contract extensions for General Manager Kyle Walters and Head Coach Mike O'Shea. Paul, Grey Cup win brings a lot of happiness, a lot of joy, and obviously sometimes extensions and contracts and stuff. And what's your initial take on 3-year extensions for both the GM and the head coach?
Yeah, about what I expected. Not sure why it took so long, a couple weeks, but I guess there was some partying to do first. Pretty critical, though, especially Mike O'Shea as head coach. You've got to get that in place because your players are wondering what kind of show there's going to be here next year, right? And you've got a free agent list as long as Willie Jefferson's wingspan, and you've got to start addressing that right away. So to get the head coach under contract was critical. By the end of this week, I remember writing late last week, if it's not done by the end of this week, they're sleeping at the switch. So they just got it in on a Friday, and now they can focus on the players. And we all know what the big one is there, right? Which quarterback's going to go. But good for them for the patience they showed to keep this Canadian Mafia together, right? 6 years now, and they're going to go into a 7th, 8th, and probably 9th. So it's an unusual stability for Canadian football to have this kind of front office and coaching staff in place for so long.
Yeah, and it's interesting now. Kyle Walters has accomplished what he would have set out to do. Same with Mike O'Shea. Those guys potentially could have maybe moved on to different challenges. There was speculation that Mike O'Shea has shot down about going to Toronto perhaps, or becoming a head coach somewhere else. What would, in your mind, keep a coach and a GM here after winning the Cup to keep trudging on and sign here? And what new challenges could there be?
A raise.
Sure.
They both got a raise.
Yeah.
Comfort. Let's face it. You're established here. Mike mentioned his eldest, or is it his youngest? His youngest.
His youngest.
Going to be just out of high school when this contract is done. So he's moved his family here. So stability. They're in a place where football really matters. We saw that with the reaction from the championship.
Yep.
And they've got a pretty good, again, support around them. Good group of management, scouts, and a good group of players that a bunch of whom will be back, obviously. So I think if there's a comfort level, why go to a new unsure situation, right?
Right.
That's why I've stayed at the Sun for a while.
Fair enough, and I hope to be there that long. I guess the last thing we can touch on here is free agency. Kyle Walters mentioned himself because of the Grey Cup win, because of trying to get a coach done, and just the added weeks that he's kind of the weeks have been kind of taken away from him to kind of get that going. He obviously said it's a good thing, winning the Grey Cup. You'd rather do that than be spending time in late October, early November on free agency already. But what are some of those challenges that they now have to, what are the top priorities at this point?
Yeah, I wouldn't say they're behind or anything. They've just, well, I guess technically they are, but the priorities, well, that's an easy one. QB. All three, as Kyle mentioned here in the scrums, all three free agents in very unusual situation. You don't even have a number one. You don't even have a clear number two back. You've got to start from scratch. So number one priority, who's your number one and how much you have to pay him. Because that tells you how much money you've got for the other two quarterbacks, right? Yep. So that's going to be fascinating. Kyle called that decision, I believe, monumental, and he didn't say between Zach Collaros and Matt Nichols.
Right.
But that's what it is.
You're right.
Let's be honest. That's what it is. Loyalty to Matt Nichols, who's been here many years, coming off shoulder surgery, or the guy who just took you to the promised land.
Right.
That's a toughest decision that they've got to make this offseason, and the most urgent one, too.
Yeah. And then obviously guys like Willie Jefferson are up, guys like Jamarcus Hardrick, Stanley Bryant, those people as well. I mean, those are obviously big pieces to this puzzle, especially Willie Jefferson, I would assume would be one, even though he's gone kind of the NFL now and trying out for an NFL team. But I mean, I guess, those are some of the things. What's after the quarterback? Is it those guys?
Boy, then you get your priority list, and I think Willie's got to be right near the top of it, sure. But some of that's out of your control, right? Does he get a good, serious look in the NFL, or does he come back here and say that it's not his future there? And if he wants to come back, which after a Grey Cup, most people say they want to, but then it always gets back to the agent, right? How much money do they want? So yeah, I'd put Willie Jefferson at the top of that list. Winston Rose as well, CFL interceptions leader. This team was built on defense, and that's where I'd start after the quarterback.
Fair enough. And obviously the coach and the GM have been extended, so all that player stuff will now start happening.
Yes.
For Paul Friesen, Scott Billick with the Winnipeg Sun, thanks for watching.